I'm back, y'all. Happy New Year and happy Black History Month. I hope y'all will forgive my absenteeism. 25 had some challenges, so I took a step back to reacclimate and better align with the universe. Thank you to everyone who reached out wanting to know when the next episode of Gen X Gon' Give It To You would drop. That day has come, people. During my hiatus, I did a lot of self-reflection. Some of you know I'm very spiritual. Some of the messages I was receiving was to give the audience more of me. I've come to understand that that means expanding on this block party. So not only will I be catching up with old Gen X friends from the Bronx, but friends I've made throughout the world, from the Netherlands to Africa, Turkey to Thailand to England. I want to hear what the 70s, 80s, 90s were like for you. What shows, music, foods, and slang can we share? Can we revive some? On today's episode, I will spotlight the amazing Irene Cara, who won many of our hearts as Sparkle. For some of y'all, it was as Coco Hernandez in Fame. Maybe it was her vocals on Flashdance, What a Feeling. We'll take a look at the rise and fall of a shining star. I would like to give a special shout out to David LeBay. He's a moderator for the group Irene Cara fans on Facebook. He's also written a book, Cinderella Superstar, Remembering Irene. When I was near done with my research, I reached out and he happily answered some questions I couldn't find the answers to. Good looking, David. So welcome back, and if this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Then tell your friends. Let's get into it. Irene Cara Escalera was born March 18, 1959 in the Bronx, New York. Her mother Louise was born to Cuban parents November 28 and 23 in Tampa, Florida. Louise's mother Margarita would die when she was an infant. Her father Sylvester would raise Louise on his own. Irene's father Gaspar was born February 10, 1917 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Gaspar was a retired tenor saxophone player with the band Chirolo y su Combo. Chirolo was the group's percussionist and musical director. Gaspar is credited on 3 albums. The band would play salsa, bolero, descarga, and charanga. In interviews, Irene has stated that her father brought merengue to the U.S. After retiring from performing, Gaspar got a job as a steel factory worker. Irene is the youngest of 5 siblings. She was nicknamed Carrot because she was born with red hair. Louise detected at a very early age that Irene was musically gifted. She could play piano by ear, and when Irene was 3, she became a finalist in the Little Miss America pageant. Her mom then enrolled her in dance, then music classes soon after. The cost for lessons, Louise worked as a cashier and movie usher. Irene has said that her mom always wanted to be in show business, but her parents wouldn't allow it. Her mom was a dancer when she was younger. She says both her parents encouraged her to pursue entertainment, but never felt pressured. It was a natural progression that she would really enjoy. Because of this nurturing, her parents instilled an unwavering confidence in her talents. Her career started on Spanish TV when she would sing and dance. We would soon hear her on the original Amateur Hour in 1967 where she sings Hola, Hola, Hola. In this performance, which you can find on YouTube, it is clear Irene was destined for stardom. She's infectious. On December 7, 1967, Irene would release a Spanish-language album titled Esta es Irene. When Irene was 9, she got a part in the Broadway play Maggie Flynn as Iris. The play would star Shirley Jones in the title role along with Jack Cassidy, Stephanie Mills, and 10-year-old Giancarlo Esposito. The play opened October 23, 1968 at the ANTA Playhouse, which is now the August Wilson Theater. Maggie Flynn is inspired by a true story during the New York draft riots of 1863. It revolves around an Irish woman named Maggie who runs an orphanage that provides asylum to the children of refugee slaves. In the midst of all this, she marries Phineas Flynn. I don't know all the details, but apparently he leaves her to join the circus. Maggie doesn't hear from him for a long time, so thinking that Phineas must be dead, falls in love with Union Army Colonel John Faraday. Then Phineas comes back and all types of drama unfolds. Irene, Stephanie, and Giancarlo play orphans. The play would run for 82 shows, with the last show on January 5, 1969. On February 23, 1970, Irene would be the youngest performer at Madison Square Garden for a musical tribute to Duke Ellington called Sold on Soul. Sammy Davis Jr. was the master of ceremony with performances by Louis Armstrong, Leslie Uggams, Ray Charles, Roberta Flack, Stevie Wonder, along with Duke Ellington and his band. In 1970, she got her first TV role on the soap opera Love of Life as Daisy Allen. Irene's career would continue to flourish. On May 18, 1970, off-Broadway play The Me That Nobody Knows opens at the Orpheum Theater. We would see Irene display her singing and acting range. Irene plays Lily May along with up-and-coming stars Melanie Henderson and Hattie Wilson. The trio will all go on to land a gig on the Electric Company. The Me That Nobody Knows is credited as the first Broadway hit to give voice to the sentiments of inner-city American youth. The play tells various stories through song by 12 young cast members who are dealing with different life struggles. The musical was praised for its candidness and honesty by critics. The New York Times wrote an article on August 3, 1970 called "Child Actors Are Still Taking Cues from Their Mom," where Irene and her mom are interviewed along with 3 other young actors and their moms about performing in the play, their future aspirations, and how moms will make it all happen. The Me That Nobody Knows would go on to receive an Obie Award. The Obie Award has been given since 1956 by the Village Voice to off-Broadway productions, with American Theater Wing becoming a joint presenter in 2014. It is off-Broadway's highest honor, similar to a Tony. It also won the Drama Desk Award for Best Musical. It is an annual prize recognizing excellence in New York theater. It was credited in 1955 as the Vernon Rice Award, which honors off-Broadway productions and those in the vicinity, renamed in 1964, the Drama Desk Awards. This award is considered a significant American distinction. The Me That Nobody Knows closed off-Broadway November 15, 1970, with 208 performances. It would open on Broadway December 18, 1970, at the Helen Hayes Theater. It would close November 14, 1971, at the Longacre Theater after 378 performances. The musical would create such a buzz that it was performed throughout the world. The German version premiered at the Bremen Stadt Theater in Germany. It was directed by Norman Foster with musical director Noel Jones. The cast would include a little-known singer at the time who would become the Donna Summer. In 1980, the musical was produced by the network Showtime as part of their Broadway series. Tisha Campbell would take over the reins as Lily Mae. Some of y'all may have seen that segment as it has been making its rounds on social media. Now, I don't know where she found the time, but on December 12, 1970, the album Christmas Time with the Harlem Children's Chorus, which featured Irene, was released. In 1971, she became a show regular on the educational program The Electric Company as a member of the show's band, The Short Circus. She plays Iris, where she often played piano and keyboard. Irene appeared in 130 episodes alongside beloved talents such as Lee Chamberlain, Rita Moreno, Luis Avalos, Bill Cosby, and Morgan Freeman. Irene would leave the show in its second season. On November 28, 1972, Irene began co-starring on Broadway with Raul Julia, Melanie Chaltoff, and Ralph Carter of Good Times in Viva Galactica at the Uris Theater, which is now named the Gershwin Theater. It was a rock musical about a group of social outcasts living on an asteroid in the year 2972. The main character, Gabriel Finn, is a space sanitation man who collects trash in a clamshell-shaped garbage ship. The production experienced many mishaps from the beginning, such as actors falling through soft trampoline floorings, to Raul getting stuck in the spaceship midair over the orchestra for 20 minutes, to Irene's character Claire unable to fly around the stage due to faulty rigging, to the new wireless microphone somehow getting cross-wired with the local police precinct. When actress Virginia Vestoff went to sing, everyone heard emergency calls about car accidents and arrests in Midtown. Viva Galactica got bad reviews and became one of the first musicals to lose $1 million. The show would close 7 days later. In 1975, Irene would star with Kevin Hooks in Aaron Loves Angela, directed by Gordon Parks Jr. It is a reworking on the Shakespeare classic Romeo and Juliet. In 1976, Irene made a major breakthrough when she got a starring role as Sparkle. The film would also star Philip Michael Thomas, Lynette McGee, Mary Alice, and Dorian Harewood. The film is loosely based off of the Motown group The Supremes. It is set in the late 80s, early 60s Harlem. It's the story of 3 sisters pursuing their dreams of successful singing careers while experiencing the price of fame. The movie soundtrack was written by Curtis Mayfield, which would produce the #1 R&B hit, Something He Can Feel. That year, John Willis's Screen World Volume 28 named Irene one of 12 promising new actors of 1976. That same year, a reader's poll on Right On magazine named her top actress. She also appeared in an episode of Kojak. In 1977, Irene appeared in an episode of What's Happening as Rerun's love interest. In 1978, Irene starred on Broadway with Nell Carter, Andre DeShields, Amelia McQueen, and Ken Page in the musical review Ain't Misbehavin'. The play is a musical tribute to singer, jazz pianist, and composer Waller. It centers around nightclub life in high society venues from the likes of the Cotton Club and the Savoy Room, with perspectives sometimes shifting to dives on Lenox Ave, also known as Malcolm X Boulevard. The play entertains the audience with raunchy, humorous songs reflecting the mood of the era. In 1979, we saw Irene reunite alongside Dorian Harewood as Alex Haley's parents in Roots, The Next Generations, which is based on the last 7 chapters of Alex Haley's novel Roots. He would go on to win 7 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe. 1980 would prove to be Irene's breakout year. She co-stars with Powers Booth, Ned Beatty, Veronica Cartwright, Rosalind Cash, Pat St. Clair, LeVar Burton, Brad Dourif before he would terrorize us as Chucky, along with many others in Guyana Tragedy, The Jim Jones Story. Soon after, on June 20th, Fame would be released in the U.S. theaters, and everyone would certainly remember her name. Fame is a musical drama set in New York City that explores the lives of students attending the High School of Performing Arts. We are introduced to various talented students such as Bruno Martelli, Ralph Garcia, Doris Finsecker, Irene as Coco Hernandez, and Leroy Johnson played by the amazing Jean Anthony Ray. We will also be introduced to the multi-talented Debbie Allen as dance teacher Lydia. Comedy legend Ann Meare also has a supporting role as English teacher Mrs. Sherwood. Along with starring in Fame, Irene also sings the theme song for the soundtrack, as well as lending her vocals to Out Here on My Own, I Sing the Body Electric, and Hot Lunch Jam. Fame had reached number 4 on Billboard's Hot 100s chart, and the album reaching number 7 on Billboard's 200 chart. The song Out Here on My Own reached number 19. The movie Fame became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring thousands of teens pursue their performing arts dreams and aspirations. The soundtrack reached multi-platinum status. The single Fame would end up winning an Oscar for Best Original Song in 1981. Irene would be asked to sing 2 songs at the Oscars, something that had never been done. She performed Fame and ballad Out Here on My Own. Fame achieved so much success, it was given a TV show of the same name with Debbie Allen, Lee Carreri, and Jean Anthony Ray reprising their roles. Irene, wanting to pursue her music career, did not return and was replaced by Erica Gimbel. In 1981, Irene got a chance at her own TV pilot called Irene with Kate Ballard, Eddie Wilson, Leah Duffy, and Keenan Ivy Wayans, but unfortunately it wasn't picked up. This didn't stop the performer, who grew up confident that she would reach superstardom. In January 1982, Irene released her first studio album, Anyone Can See, with the single charting at number 42 on Billboard's Hot 100. Soon after, Irene would team up with actor George Segal in one of the first Canadian films to go straight to video, called Killing 'Em Softly. The synopsis explains the movie is about a woman who falls in love with her boyfriend's killer. Now, my first thought was, we just listen, we don't judge. And I'm glad I didn't. The synopsis is all wrong. Irene's character, Jane's boyfriend, is accused of murder. Having been with her boyfriend at the time of the murder, Jane grows suspicious of a neighbor, so she begins her own investigation. In June 1982, she starred in Maya Angelou's Sister Sister, which also stars Queens Diane Carroll and Rosalind Cash, as 3 sisters, each with their own ideas on the fate of their family home. The film would go on to win an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding TV, Movie, Miniseries, or Dramatic Special. Irene would win an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actress in a Movie, Miniseries, or Dramatic Special. March 1983, fans would see Irene earn another notch on her acting belt, where she would play Merle Evers, the wife of civil rights activist Medgar Evers, in the American Playhouse TV movie For Us the Living, the Medgar Evers story. The movie would go on to win the Writers Guild of America Award. Irene would be nominated for Best Actress. Later that month, Irene's career would enter another stratosphere when her and Keith Fosse are approached to provide lyrics and music to a movie soundtrack. They were shown only the last scene of an upcoming film to draw inspiration from. Immediately after the movie, they headed to the studio. By the time they arrived, the duo had written most of the song that would become known as the timeless classic, Flashdance, What a Feeling. They explained that it was important for them to convey what it feels like when music inspires someone to dance. The song was released a few weeks later before the movie to create a buzz around the positive reviews. Flashdance was such an unexpected box office success that the record stores across the U.S. sold out of the single and soundtrack in just a few days after the movie release. Flashdance, What a Feeling would spend 6 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It would go on to sell 20 million copies worldwide. Irene would become the youngest artist to receive an Oscar for songwriter. She would also make history by becoming the first Afro-Latina to win at the Grammys and Oscars for the same song. In November of 1983, Irene released her second album, appropriately titled What a Feeling. It would include the singles Why Me, The Dream, Hold On to the Dream, Breakdance, and You Were Made for Me. The album would reach number 77 on the Billboard charts. Riding high on success, Irene finished out 1983 by appearing as herself in the comedy DC Cab starring Mr. T, Max Gail, and Adam Baldwin. In 1984, she would appear alongside Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds in City Heat as Ginny Lee. Because of the success of Flashdance, Irene was left confused as to why she was receiving so little in royalty payments. She was getting like $183. That's crazy. She accused the head of her label, Al Corey, of Network Records, of cheating her out of at least $2 million in royalties and earnings. In February 1985, she filed a $10 million lawsuit accusing Corey of withholding royalties from the Flashdance soundtrack, as well as her first 2 solo albums. Cara says Corey was starting a new label and convinced her to leave with him by signing what she was told a better contract. The contract would give her and Corey equal share of profits to her songs. She would later find out that she would be paid around $25,000 in royalties when Corey got over $60,000 in royalties. As reported by UPI, Unified Payment System, the suit claims Corey took advantage of Cara's trust in him to get her to sign agreements that were patently one-sided, unfair, unjust, and oppressive. Corey was known as a major industry player. He had worked at Capitol Records developing professional relationships with artists like Linda Ronstadt, the Beach Boys, Paul McCartney, and Pink Floyd. He was nicknamed the man with the golden ears. He had so much power in the industry that he could release a song without even consulting the artist first. Fortunately, he would be right many of the times. His label, RSO Records, would become home to acts like Eric Clapton, Andy Gibb, Yvonne Elliman, and the Bee Gees. The label also released soundtracks for Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Star Wars, Fame, and others. The company started to have financial issues when they produced a movie adaptation of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, starring the Bee Gees. It would gross $20 million on a $13 million budget. The film would receive dismal reviews. The Bee Gees would go on to sue as well. The next year, RSO absorbed by Polygram, and the artist went to other labels. This is when Corey founded Network Records, with Irene being one of its first big artists. She would tell Songwriter Universe all the other artists that had been on RSO went elsewhere. When that dissolved, the Bee Gees left, and Yvonne Elliman left. And I, not having good management or a good lawyer, I thought I was obligated to this record president who signed me for a movie fame. She would go on to say, and I had enough. I had 2 of the biggest hits of the decade, and I was not seeing a dime. Because Corey had a lot of power and industry backing, he was up for the financial and legal fight. It should also be noted that Irene was still legally under contract with him. Irene would learn that words like profits and gross revenue or receipts would prove to be detrimental. Wording is everything. It was during cross-examination of an expert witness by the defense that the scales of justice swayed in her favor. The expert would summarize the case as a whole mess of Hollywood accounting, opening up the door to admission of guilt. Irene's lawyer, Tom Nunziato, would sum it up by saying, and the truth of the matter is, it's how the industry is. They rip off young singers, and it's not until the artist plays the game for a while and get to the point where they can renegotiate their contracts that they can start making a lot of money. Irene just was not willing to do that. It was around that time that Irene said she was blackballed. Record executives wouldn't meet with her, and film producers wouldn't return her calls. Rumors about drug addiction left her being escorted out of offices. She would go on to say, restaurants and hangout spots I frequented and felt comfortable in now looked at me with disdain. The glares and sneers of other LA celebrities had become so vicious that I knew I couldn't tolerate living there any further. Not one to be easily swayed, Irene teamed up with Tatum O'Neal to star in Certain Fury, a gritty crime drama that unfolds after the 2 women end up on the run from the police after a courtroom shootout and mistaken identity. Though it was a commercial flop and panned by critics, Irene was a success in the love department. During filming, she met stuntman and director Conrad Palmisano. They fell in love and got married April 13, 1986. Later in 86, she stars with Paul Kufis and Stan Shaw. He's been in tons of movies since the 70s, but for many of us, it may be his scene-stealing moments as stuttering boxer Jack Jenkins in Harlem Nights. Her husband Conrad would direct Busted Up. Busted Up is about a gym owner, Earl Bird, who is harassed by corrupt developers after he refuses to sell. Earl is determined to keep his daughter Sarah and the rest of the neighborhood safe. Irene plays lounge singer Simone, who is Sarah's mother, who hopes to re-enter the girl's life regardless of Earl's protests. In 1987, the movie and music industry was still on their blackball BS. So when Irene attempted to release her most recent album, Charismatic, they took measures to prevent her from performing her old early music anywhere in the nation, as well as stopping distribution of Charismatic in the US. Charismatic is a play off of her name and is her only album for Elektra Records. It has contributions from popular musicians like James Ingram, Patrice Rushen, Kenny Loggins, Bonnie Raitt, Michael Bolton, and Luther Vandross. Although it has a star roster, it didn't chart on the Billboard 200, but we know why. In 1988, guest starred in an episode of the TV series Bustin' Loose, starring Jimmy Walker and Vanetta McGee. Not to be confused with the movie Bustin' Loose, starring Richard Pryor and Cicely Tyson. But it is loosely based on the movie. Jimmy plays an ex-con turned handyman who lives in the basement of a social worker played by McGee, who fosters 4 kids. Jimmy's character quickly becomes an endearing addition to the household. In episode 25, Irene plays Vivian, a gun-toting robber posing as an aspiring singer. I am today's old that I even found out about this show. It would last 1 season with 26 episodes. In 1989, Irene would star and sing the theme to Caged in Paradiso. It would be later renamed Maximum Security. It's about women imprisoned on an island who band together to escape their captors. That same year, she would contribute her voice to Happily Ever After as Snow White. By 1991, Irene was nearly broke. Most of her savings were nearly depleted from legal costs against her former label. It was during this time that she and Conrad divorced. Some speculate that it was because of their 15-year age gap. Others have said it was because no child was produced. I didn't find any definitive proof of either. A lot of her experiences left her angry and bitter. Wanting change, Irene moved to San Francisco, where she worked on her spirituality. She re-emerged. We would see her as resilient as ever. She continued to book voiceover gigs, which included Beauty and the Beast as Beauty, The Magic Voyage, The Jungle King, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, none of which were Disney productions, just to be clear. Irene also toured Europe and Asia after releasing successful singles. She also released a Eurodance compilation titled Precarious 90s. In 1993, Irene toured the revival of Jesus Christ Superstar. That same year, Irene's lawsuit against Al Corey would finally come to an end, with her being awarded $1.5 million in compensatory damages and ownership of her masters. If I hadn't decided to go and do an episode on her, I may not have learned that Irene continued to work and put out music on her terms. I honestly didn't know what happened to her after, DC Cab. How many of us knew she was blackballed? We've always heard the term, but to learn that it happened to a cultural icon is crazy and just shows how diabolical people can be when they are challenged. This can be said about anybody. This can be said about anyone, anytime. It's not just a Hollywood thing. Ego and greed is a human thing. People should be able to defend themselves when mistreated without repercussions. It makes sense as to why she became a recluse in her later years. The industry that she made her livelihood in turned their back on her. After touring abroad began to wind down, Irene formed the all-female group Hot Caramel in 1999, consisting of 6 members all having unique style of their own. 2001 would see Irene collaborate with Swiss artist DJ Bobo on the remix of What a Feeling. The video would be filmed in Germany. The song would introduce the mega-talented singer to a new generation of fans. Irene has always expressed how much her fans meant to her, so this was very exciting. In 2004, Hot Caramel released the single Downtown, a soulful remake of the Petula Clark classic. On June 16, 2005, Irene appeared on the show Hit Me Baby One More Time, where she performed What a Feeling solo, as well as I'm Out of Love with Hot Caramel by Anastasia. She would end up winning round 3 on that episode. In 2006, she released the dance single Forever My Love for the compilation album Gay Happening Volume 12. Also in 2006, Irene provided an invigorating performance of What a Feeling for the Australian Football League Grand Final at the Melbourne Cricket Ground to a crowd of 100,000 people. Let that sink in. 100,000 people, y'all. Everyone in attendance will remember her name, because in addition to the performance, Flashdance What a Feeling was also featured in an advertising campaign for Carlton Drought Beer by the event sponsor. In 2008, she performed on the General Jackson Showboat. The long-awaited album Irene Cara Presents Hot Caramel is released in 2011. The album consists of 24 songs with Irene as executive producer. It's a blend of pop, soul, and R&B, which features collaborations by Joseph Williams of Toto, Jason Scheff of Chicago, and Joe Pizzullo of Sergio Mendes. Hot Caramel's debut album was well received and has attracted a dedicated fan base. In later years, Irene moved to Largo, Florida, while also maintaining a second residence in Newport Richey, where Hot Caramel Productions Company was located. She would go on to say, "I have a beautiful home by the beach and life is good. I live off my royalties and work when I want to. I consider myself semi-retired." In 2019, Irene launched her podcast called The Backstory. In it, she would tell the behind-the-scenes moments regarding production and collaborative efforts, as well as the experiences that motivated some of her songs. In episode 1, she discusses her song Anyone Can See, which was on her first album. This is when we learned that Luther Vandross re-recorded a version no one had heard till now. We would get to hear Irene on background. She expresses how exhilarating it is to hear someone sing her songs, especially someone as talented as Luther, whom she's known since 15 and considered a mentor. She also introduces a song, As Long As It Lasts, written by Susan Hamilton and David Buskin. It's about love lasting till the end of time if both trust and love and not focus on uncertainty. The August 16th episode, Hot Caramel performs Keep On Moving, originally performed by Soul to Soul. Irene would also take time out to shout out new listeners. On October 28th, 2019's episode, titled Irene Cara featuring Hot Caramel Music, the songstress introduces songs performed by the talented group, sometimes with special guests, starting with an upbeat tempo version of Downtown by Petula Clark, then Caramel Dreams. She wanted the group to have a theme song. Her, Shonda Bailey, and Audrey Martell team up. They sing about champagne wishes and caramel dreams. Next, she explains she's a hopeless romantic as she introduces the next song, which is a ballad. She goes on to say that she was crazy about someone she knew she never had a chance with. She says those are the songs that turn out to be great. She thanks acoustic guitarist Manny Lopez, How Can I Make You Love Me? The next song, Life in the Fast Lane, the group jams out to the rock classic originally sung by the Eagles. Kiss and Walk Away, the next song, is about a terrible breakup. The group is joined by Brent Carter, whose voice Irene proclaims is up there with Donny Hathaway and Luther. After hearing him, I would have to agree. On October 28th, introduces Stop Frontin', a song about a couple having issues because the woman feels she continues to prove that she's a good thing. Meanwhile, he's still at the impressing his friends stage. She's over it and tells him to stop fronting. Soul Beat is a tribute to the people, land, and culture of Peru, who always leaves an impression when she visits. She would say it has a Latin pop feel. Next up, another ballad where she plays acoustic piano with the group called No One Can Love You More. She introduces One Step Closer, previously recorded by Gavin Christopher in 1984. She explains she will remake a song if she can see herself writing it, or that speaks to her on an emotional level. It features Cassandra Lewis, a finalist on Season 6 of The Voice. In this song, she admits to being selfish, but has grown and is now one step closer to uniting with the one she loves. Misty Blue would be another remake on the album. It has been remade by many performers throughout the decades, with Dorothy Moore's blues version charting the highest at number 3 in September 1976. She closes out the episode with a jazz-infused song that was recorded live in the studio, featuring spoken word by Hot Caramel member Lakia Jackson. At the end of the episode, she expresses excitement for upcoming episodes, which will feature the backstory of 80s hits, a show on just ballads, and material that we can only hear on the podcast. The next episode that I found was September 29th, 2020. Irene will take us back to 1985, where she explains her album Charismatic was never officially released or promoted. She happily goes on to tell us that after finally winning the lawsuit in 1993, she got her masters to her music back and can now share it. She gives props to Antonio Lopez for the album artwork. He's also known as a fashion icon in the 80s. She talks about Say Goodnight Irene featuring John Farrar. The song is about a brief romantic relationship with deep longing and desire, but it's destined to go nowhere. The next song and last on the episode is We're Gonna Get Up. In this song, she's crushing on a guy she's encountered. She beckons him with promises of song, dance, and good times. During her career, Irene has appeared on many media outlets like Ted Mack and the original Amateur Hour in 1967, Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, John Kirsch's rock concert, David Letterman's morning talk show, which lasted 4 months. Irene sang Out Here on My Own. April 9, 1977, she spoke at Donnell Library Center for New York City Youth Theater Festival to answer one-on-one questions. American Bandstand shortly after the release of Fame. She appeared on Solid Gold 3 times. Irene sings Fame at the Celebrity Skating Party, the Burger King Thank You America commercial. She was in Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters video, performed with Count Basie in 1983 at the Parrot Club. She appears in A Christmas Moment with Irene Cara, about traditions in Cuba from a TV promo in 1985. The dialogue is, Noche Buena. The holiday celebrated as Christmas in my ancestors' native Cuba occurs on December 24th. That evening, families gather together, opening their homes and hearts to relatives and friends they may not have seen during the year. After gaily sharing good tidings, they sit down to a large feast made up of roast pork, black beans, rice, bread, and sparkling cider called sidra. However, the gift-giving waits until January 5th. Here are some quotes from the iconic singer. We all need inspiration at pivotal moments to help us navigate our life. Fame often provided that to its fans and mirrored the inner voice we all have. I'm a woman on a mission. I've learned to believe in myself, my vision, and to do things the way I want them done. I refuse to let anybody try to typecast me. It's against my nature. I like to continually do things different. I don't mean to sound immodest, but I never had any doubt that I'd be successful, nor any fear of success. I was raised as a little goddess who was told she would be a star. I am very intense. I can't help it. That's the way I am. You can't be in this business without being intense. The pressure and the tension get to you. It can't help but show on you. I play piano and write better than I can sing. It's important for me to get back to my fans here and around the world. I feel very, very blessed that so many people have continued to write me and to pour out their love for me and my work. Your fear seems to hide deep inside your mind. Cara is not my real name, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. Only because I do live in New York and enough people already know who my parents are. The pandemic drove Irene to be even more reclusive. She was terrified of getting COVID. After not being heard from for weeks, her nephew requested a welfare check at her home and was found November 25th, 2022. After the investigation, it was determined that she had been dead several weeks. The last known contact was with her admin assistant on November 1st, 2022. A few days before that, she had spoken with her manager, Betty McCormick, and mentioned intestinal problems. It was determined that Irene died from hypertension, high cholesterol, and diabetes. I remember hearing the news and was overcome with such sadness as if I'd known her personally. That's the type of impression she left on so many of us. Thank you, Irene Cara, for sharing your creativity, passion, commitment, and love with us. We will remember your name. On the next episode of Gen X Gonna Give It To You in 2 weeks, I pay homage to the man whose weapon of choice was a camera. Gordon Parks was a superhero in the form of a shapeshifter. He had the ability to transform depending on how he wanted his messages to be received. Sometimes photographer, sometimes writer, sometimes musician, sometimes composer, sometimes editor, sometimes director, always humane. Join me as I go fangirl on the upcoming episode of Gen X Gonna Give It To You. And don't forget to like and subscribe.